Good morning. I'm going to discuss about basic terminologies of database. This comes to the database. What is database? Database is a collection of organized data which is stored and which can be managed and updated whenever it's required. Comes to DBMS, database management system, which is actually a software which enables the users to interact with the database. Interaction in the sense you can create, manage, querying the database. Also, this DBMS provides us the tools for doing such things like creating, managing and querying the database. Comes to the table. Table is a collection of data organized in rows and columns. Tables are the basic structure in a relational database. And what is row? What is column? Comes to the row. Each row in a table is referred as a record. So each single entry which we kept in the table which contains data related to a specific entity or object which is called as record. And column or field, a vertical section in a database that actually represents a specific attribute or a property. So this column holds a data for a particular aspect of the entity. So this is row and this is column. Comes to the primary key. Primary key is always unique. So the unique identifier for each record in a table. This primary key also ensures that each row can be uniquely identified and retrieved. Then foreign key. A column in a table that refers to the primary key in another table. Actually, it establishes a link between two tables which also enforces the referential integrity. A data structure that improves the speed of data retrieval operations on a database is called as index. And a query, a request for data retrieval or manipulation from the database. So we can write a query to do any retrieval or any manipulation like update, delete, whatever. And queries are typically written in a query language. For example, SQL, structured query language, MySQL. Then there are a lot of query languages available. Normalization. Normalization is the process of organizing the data in a database to eliminate redundancy and improve the data integrity. Comes to the relational database, where it is a type of database that uses a tabular structure. Tabular structure in the sense like it organizes the data and relationships between the tables which were defined. Then SQL, structured query language. It is actually a programming language for querying a database, and this is also used for managing and manipulating the relational databases. This includes commands for querying to and from the database, then updating and managing the databases. Transaction, a sequence of one or more database operations treated as a single unit. So each and everything which actually referred as a transaction, and this transaction ensures the consistency and integrity of a database. Comes to asset property. Atomicity, A for atomicity, C for consistency, I for isolation and D for durability. This asset property ensures the guarantee of reliability of the database transactions. This atomicity ensures the transactions are treated as single unit. Atomicity, atomic means single value. And consistency ensures the database remains in a valid state. Consistent, the database to be consistent, okay, at all the times. And isolation ensures that transactions are independent of each other. Isolate. Each and everything was isolated since it is independent of each other. So that this isolation ensures the transactions are independent of each other. And durability, which ensures that committed transactions are permanent. Durable. The presence, okay, which ensures the committed transactions are permanent. And schema is actually an overall design of a database or a blueprint. So the structure or blueprint which defines the organization of data in a database, which includes the tables in a database, then fields in a database, then relationships, then constraints. Comes to the data dictionary. So we know dictionary, it contains the thing where here the data dictionary is a repository that stores the metadata about the database, including information about tables, columns, data types, and their relationships. The database system architecture. There are 4 types of users in the database system architecture, which is represented in the right hand side. This whole architecture comes with several phases. Here in the top, we can able to see the users, naive users, application programmers, sophisticated users, and database administrators in the top level. Then this database system is actually divided into 3 components, which is actually represented in the diagram as query processor, storage manager, and disk storage. The next 3 levels, which is represented in the diagram. And this as a whole is considered to be the database system architecture. In the down we have disk storage, where we have data, indices, data dictionary, and statistical data. Then at the top we have storage manager, and in the storage manager we have buffer manager, file manager, authorization and integrity manager, then transaction manager. Over to the top we have query processor. In the query processor we have query evaluation engine, then DML compiler, DML interpreter, then application program object code. Over to the top we have the interfaces for the user, application interface for the naive user, application programs for the application programmer, query tools for the sophisticated user, database administrator. The query processor, it interprets the request, that is queries from the user via an application, application or interface into instructions. It actually executes queries which is received in the form of queries from the DML compiler. So user will put to compiler, that is query, and which will be received by the query processor, which will process the user components, DML compiler, DDL statements into low level instructions. It gives to the DDL interpreter. DDL interpreter process the DDL statements into set of table containing metadata. Then the DL process the DML statements, embedded application program into protocol. Finally, the code executes the instructions generated by the DML compiler. The storage manager comes to the storage manager. It actually the information stored database, that is in the disk storage, and the request, that is queries from the user. It also known as database control system, which maintains the consistency and integrity throughout the process, and the main responsibility is managing the data. Actually the data manipulation done, which will be managed by the storage manager, such as addition, deletion, then updation, any modification, etc. The storage manager has the following components as authorization manager, control whether the user can enter into it or not. So it checks for the person who is privileged to perform such an operation into the database or not. It ensures those things. And integrity manager checks for the integrity constraints when the database. Transaction manager controls by performing the operations in a scheduled way, so that it receives the transaction. Thus it ensures that the database remains in the consistent state before and after the execution of a particular transaction. The file manager manages the file space and the data structure used to represent those information in the database. Comes to the buffer manager, it is responsible for cache memory and the transfer of data between the secondary storage and main memory. Then comes to the disk storage. Disk storage, where it is used to store all the information which contains Data files, data dictionary, indices, and statistical data. Data files are the data which is stored in the database, and data dictionary contains the information about the structure of any database object. It is the repository actually which stores the information and governs the metadata. Indices provides faster retrieval of data item, as we seen in the previous thing. Statistical data contains the statistics of all the information. Thank you.